Welcome to the Science and Spirituality Podcast, where we dive deep into universal spiritual principles and ground them in modern science. My name is Chris Carden.
And my name is Kevin Carden. And we are committed to simplifying the spiritual side of success for you with easy to understand scientific research so you could walk away with practical tools to create radical transformations in your life. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Science and Spirituality Podcast. My name is Kevin, if you didn't know that already. We got Chris here, and we're diving into this episode about habits and what Napoleon Hill has called cosmic habit force, which is the spirituality behind the habits that we form and how it could benefit our lives. So let's dive.
Why do you think he calls it that?
I think he calls it that because it's not just our own human energy or human nature, or human action in building habits. Like I think what we're going to talk about in the science about habits is like, yes, there's a part of it that is with our brain and how it works, with our nervous system and how it works. But I think what he calls it cosmic habit force is that there is another force, another energy that is beyond who we are, that comes into and through us to support us and exponentially grow our results as we continue with the habits that we put into place. And I know we're going to talk about exponential growth. I think the cosmic habit force, like the energy from the universe, is what causes that exponential growth.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about that idea is that it's not something that's very easy to grasp because it's not like something tangible.
True.
And so I think like the example that I wanted to bring up about like habits and how doing little things, and that's what we really mean about habits, is doing little things every single day.
Yeah.
And how when you do little things over and over and over again on a consistent basis, you start to build this momentum and like this cosmic habit force is what I think it is, momentum basically.
Yeah.
Which is you can't see. And the problem is that when you start a habit and you do things, let's say for like a day or 2 days or 3 days, even a month, you don't really feel like you're moving the needle much. So it's very easy to stop doing the things that we know we should be doing because those things are simple to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because they're simple to do, they're also simple not to do. There was an example in the book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, where he talks about two people drinking. One person is drinking a diet soda every day and the other person is drinking a regular soda every day. And over like the first like year, like basically nothing happens because it's just an extra 150 calories a day. Mm-hmm. But over like 5 years, the person who was drinking the regular Coke ends up gaining 30 pounds. And the person that was drinking the Diet Coke doesn't gain any weight at all. And there's an argument there about is Diet Coke good for you? But the point is that it's the little things every day where it's like, oh, like one Coke doesn't seem too bad over time. Yeah. For one day, it's only 150 calories or so. But over time, added up, that's where that cosmic habit force, that momentum kicks in, and you wake up one day and you're like, holy crap, like how did I get like this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. For sure. I thought you were going to go with the example of the penny doubled every day.
Oh, I can tell them too. Sorry. I just like,
yeah. No, but like, let's talk before we dive into that, like about the science behind it. I want you to touch on that, like forming habits, like brain plasticity, like the science behind it. I feel like you know more about it.
I mean, if you think about like our brains in general and just our whole nervous system, like humans we're very pattern orientated machines. Like our brains love to create patterns. And so our brain doesn't care if those patterns are good for you or bad for you. It just tries to make your daily life easier and easier. So when you start performing good habits or bad habits, your brain will lock into that and start to create new neural connections of, oh, wow, this person does this every day. Let me make a pathway, like a neural pathway, so that I can think and do this thing easier and easier over time. That's why a lot of times, like, we don't really think about brushing our teeth.
Yeah.
We don't think
flossing.
about exactly. It's just like it's constant, but vice versa. Like sometimes, like we'll get home from work and flip on the TV, and it's like you'll be watching for an hour, and you're like, "How'd I get here?" It's because your brain is like, "This is what I do every day, so I'm gonna make it easier to do this every day."
Yep.
And so when you're starting new habits, it's important to have that idea in mind too, because if you don't work out, let's say, and you want to start working out, your brain's not going to have any neural pathways of working out. So in the very beginning, it's going to be hard because it's going to be like you're digging that like ditch where the first couple shovels are hard, but then after over time you kind of build that rut or build that moat where you can like safely like walk in. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So people need to realize that the brain has those circuits and they need to be built over time. And so in the very beginning, if you're feeling frustrated because you're like, how come this is not easy? And I have to think about this all the time, stick with it. And then eventually, that momentum will kick in and your neurochemistry and your neuroscience will start to work for you. And then the cosmic habit force. And then it's all those things start to snowball together at one point. But I think the hardest thing for people in the very beginning is seeing that, like having a future vision about how this is actually going to help me. Because doing yoga for one day or going for a walk for one day or eating a healthy meal once, it doesn't actually do anything in the moment, right? It's like is that one hamburger from McDonald's going to kill you? It's like no. But like that one hamburger over 5 years, yes, it'll give you heart disease. You know what I mean? But we don't tie that together, like the now with future outcomes.
Mm.
I think that's like the biggest like stumbling block for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the examples I mentioned before, because this is something that I've learned over the last 6 months, I'd say, of flossing every day.
Mhm.
Like I used to, I mean, Chris, you and I grow up, like we never really flossed. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but like for me, like ever since I started dating Vivienne, she always flosses. And so as we got to know each other more and like she would sleep over and then like just notice like I wasn't flossing. She was like, what are you doing? It's like, what? But then and then when I first began that habit, like it was like I had to keep the floss like out so I would remind myself and literally cause myself to do it. Cause sometimes I'd be like, nah, like I don't feel like it. It's literally just
Mhm.
1 minute. But like as I've done it more and more and more, now like I remember a couple weeks ago, I literally just like picked it up without even thinking. Like that's just like that habit force, just like that's just what I do. So
Yeah.
which is really good. I'm glad about it, like that I created that.
Yeah. And also, how many times I feel like people who are listening, because I can relate to this, where like you'll think about doing something and then you won't do it. And then like 3 months later, you'll be like, imagine if I started doing this 3 months ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, because again, we don't see the little things added up over time, how it's going to get us to a certain place. We just think,
Yeah.
oh, how am I going to do the most I can do right now? And I feel
Yeah.
like that trips a lot of people up because they're waiting for that one big break. I'm putting that in
Yeah.
quotes. That one, like, well, I'm going to win the lottery or this, but it's like everyone can actually become a millionaire if they just save a little every week and use
Yeah.
compound over time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's boring. Like no one wants to get wealthy that way. Everyone's looking for that one quick hit thing or the one company idea, or you know what I mean? It's like,
Yes.
but it's the little things that you do on a day-to-day basis that help you build that momentum and then also put you in the space to become lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's because like you said, it's not like no one wants to become rich that way. It's not sexy. It's not
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
fancy. It's not
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love it. I can't wait to do it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of energy behind it until you start to really get into the rhythm of it. Like then like you start to, because you then start to see some results after 90 days, after 180 days, after a year of doing something super consistently.
Yeah.
So
So I actually want to bring up the story here real quick about the
yeah.
penny thing
Yeah.
because it's actually a story about a father who he has two sons and he gives them each a choice. And he's like, would you rather take $1 million now or one penny um, that doubles every day and then you get the money at the end of 30 days? It's like most people are like, one penny doubled like every day. Like, how much is that actually going to give me? So they take the million. But I have a chart here. And so a penny doubled every single day for 30 days. At the end of 30 days, you'll have $5.3 million. But here's like the interesting part. It's like at day one, you have 1 cent, obviously. At day 15, which is halfway through the month, you only have $163, right? And then at day 20, you only have 5,000. So like really the compounding effect of this penny doubled really doesn't kick in to about day 25 when you have 167. But then again, like you end up with over
167 what?
1,000. But
Okay,
even
didn't say that.
like literally over the last, what is it, 5 days, you go from 167,000 to over 5 million
Mhm.
because you built up that like
Yeah,
that doing the little things every single day.
yeah. Yeah, and that also I want to bring up the evidence, like scientific evidence. Like there's been studies that show that to build a habit that is consistent, most people think it's 21 days, but 21 days is actually the low end of
Mhm.
building a habit. Like that's where it starts to kick in. But the evidence shows, like after this study was done, that the average amount of time it takes to build a habit where it sticks, where it does become that that just no, like, I don't want to use no brainer, but that like that you don't even have to think about, that it's just normal for you. It's 66 days.
Mm.
Then I feel like that's like really like the point, around the point where the cosmic habit force really starts to come in, because it's in that groove. It's like it's happening. It's everyday thing. And so
Yeah,
therefore then there's more energy. Like you mentioned, like our brain likes to like create paths of least resistance, or like
that's a
um
good way to put it. Yeah, that's
yeah,
exactly what it is. Yeah,
yeah, it creates a pattern so that it doesn't have to focus on that. Because, and I think this is where like the exponential growth comes in, because once you have that habit ingrained and you're not even thinking about doing that habit, then your mind is freed up to then think of more ways to increase your life. So like
yeah.
it's like added on top of what you're already doing, of like good things you can do.
It's also like the fact of building on like a day-to-day progression of something. So like I just thought of this example in my head and I don't know if it's true, but think about it. Like would it be more powerful if you did 30 things of yoga, but you did them like one a month over like almost 3 years, or if you did 30 days of yoga back to back?
Yeah,
Like I think it would be more powerful that way because you're building on the muscle that you built the day before and the day
yeah,
before and the day before. Like if you like start something and then take a break and then start it again and then take a break, you're not letting that momentum build up. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So
exactly.
yeah, and so I think that's also what he means by the cosmic habit force too. It's like you need to give yourself a chance to kind of like get going. It's almost like starting like a really big boat or like a really big gear where like the first couple pushes are like
Mm,
gear doesn't move, but then once it starts moving, it's like its own momentum keeps it going and like
yeah,
starts it. And
exactly.
yeah, and I think that that's just a big issue for a lot of people nowadays too, because we live in a quick fix type of world. Like no
Yeah,
one wants to hear that, hey, like if you do this little thing every day for 5 years, you'll end up where you want to be. Everyone wants to be like, how do I do it in a week? You
yeah,
know, it's just
exactly.
not
Quick
how it works.
results.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think another piece of it is that it's it's easy once you have some tangible results to then just relax on the habit that you've built.
Mm.
I've seen that in my life, like particularly with working out and
Yeah.
exercise. Like I'll get into a really good habit and routine for like 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and then like I'll travel somewhere and like for like a week or 2 weeks, and it's like, oh well, like I'm not going to work out while I'm gone, or I'm away because I'm out of my normal. And so then I just like, all right, I'll just pick it up when I get back. But then 2 weeks go by and I don't work out. So then it's like, oh, like I haven't done it for 2 weeks. I'll start next week. Like,
Yeah.
and then like
Yeah.
it's so easy
Momentum's
because you've
gone.
gotten good results, but then
Yeah.
like you're like, it's like you're being you get complacent. You got
Yeah.
to,
And I think,
you're really careful of too.
yeah. And then if you take those 2 weeks off, like the momentum's gone.
Yeah.
Your body's like, okay, like now I'm used to resting again.
Yeah.
Um, and I think also too, when we talked about this on a lot of our other podcasts, but I feel like we haven't talked about it in a while, is like defining like a why you're doing certain things.
Mm,
And I feel like if you're working out because like you want to look a certain way, I feel like that might be like a weaker why. You know what I mean? Because it's like your body's gonna fade eventually anyway. But if you think like, or a better way to put it, if you're working out because you want to look a certain way, you might
hmm.
get discouraged in the very beginning because your body's not going to be changing for a while.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
like, I'm going to do this yoga, or I'm going to do this because I love the way it makes me feel and I feel good about myself, or sticking to commitments, then I feel like you might have a better chance to get through that very beginning phase, which is like the harder phase
Hmm.
before the habits start to actually, come into play and take over.
Yeah. Very true.
So do you want to bring this episode in for a close? Because I know we want to keep it short. I do have some practical advice for people
Do it.
that I've been kind of taking on my own. So I know we have like a lot of areas of our life that we want to improve. So my advice for people would be to pick like one or two areas, whether it's like fitness or like nutrition with your eating or relationships or whatever,
Money.
happiness, yeah, money, finances, and just pick something that you can do for 10 minutes a day to move you forward in that area, and just start with 10 minutes. Because again, it seems like nothing, but a good example from the book was that if you read like 10 minutes a day or 10 pages a day of a book over the course of a year, that's 3,650 pages, which is over like 12 novels, like regular sized novels. So it's like, wow, reading 10 pages a day doesn't feel like anything, but compounded over time, it's a shit ton of books.
Hmm.
So pick like one thing in a few areas of your life and just set aside 5 or 10 minutes to do one thing every day to move you forward, and just stick to it for a little while, because everyone can do 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Get cracking on that. Do something
Yeah.
different. You invested probably about 10 minutes in this episode. Might as well utilize the information that you've heard.
And if one of your goals is personal development, just listen to more of our episodes a day.
There you go. Yeah, add that in. It's once a week. We release a new one, and every Tuesday. So
yep.
Enjoy the rest of your day. And that's it for today. So thanks for tuning in, and we really hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed recording it. So any questions, any comments, just connect with us on Instagram. You could always DM us at Kevin Francis Carton
and at Chris J. Carton. And also, if you feel guided to, the one thing we do ask is for you to please rate the podcast and leave us a review. This way we can reach more people and impact more lives with this amazing information. With that, we'll see you on the next episode.